So I guess Trump just fired Pam Bondi. That's crazy, bro. So let's get into it. Let's see what they got to say.
At the White House, Attorney General Pam Bondi has been ousted.
Let's go now to CNN senior White House correspondent Kristen Holmes. Kristen, tell us what you're learning. This is brand new.
Yeah, things are very fluid. They're moving very quickly, but I am told that Pam Bondi has been officially fired. She's out of her role. Now, where she goes next, that is a question mark. I was told in the meeting or in the conversation President Trump had with Bondi yesterday, he floated the idea of a judgeship as a potential landing place for Bondi. And in the interim period, while they are figuring out who is going to take over as Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will step into that role. So he will be serving in the interim. Pam Bondi, though, is out. We had already reported that she was in Florida. We have been talking about for the last several hours how in the last week, President Trump had been calling allies, asking about firing her, who should replace her. It doesn't seem as though they have someone specific in mind. We know that they have floated the idea of Lee Zeldin, among other people. Zeldin is currently leading the EPA, but I am told that is not a done deal. President Trump, interestingly, did issue a very flattering for President Trump's statement about Bondi last night, saying Attorney General Pam Bondi is a wonderful person and she is doing a good job. The reason that I note that is that because when we saw Kristi Noem being fired, there was none of that kind of generosity of spirit when it came to President Trump. Now, just a reminder, Bondi has a very close relationship with Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. They're both political operatives in Florida. They kind of came up together, so they have a long-lasting relationship. But President Trump had grown increasingly frustrated about a number of issues. One, didn't believe that some of the cases against his adversaries or political adversaries were being brought fast enough. He didn't believe that she had handled the Epstein files well, among other things. So we do know they had this conversation yesterday in which essentially President Trump told her that she was not long for this world, that he would eventually be replacing her. What we know now is that she has been officially fired. And again, Todd Blanche will step into that role as the Deputy Attorney General into an acting Attorney General role.
And Kristen, this now marks the second cabinet position that Trump has fired and now has sought a replacement for within the last month. What can you tell us about Blanche himself, his relationship to Trump? Obviously, he's going to be in the acting role until a new Attorney General is put in place.
Well, look, Blanche and President Trump are incredibly close. He served as his personal attorney before taking this role as the Deputy Attorney General. And there are a number of people who are around President Trump's orbit who have said that Blanche isn't political enough. Well, we saw Blanche taking a new role recently when he stepped out at CPAC and essentially said that everybody who had ever investigated Donald Trump or brought charges against him had been fired from the Department of Justice, making the Department of Justice clearly very political. And President Trump has liked what Todd Blanche has done. Blanche has always been kind of viewed as the person in the background making all of the mechanisms work. Now, of course, he'll be front and center, but it doesn't sound as though he's going to take this position long term, that they are going to still find a figurehead, so to speak, as the actual Attorney General, but that he will be filling in the interim time period. And I do want to note, one of the things that's so fascinating about this removal of Kristi Noem and this removal now of Pam Bondi is that we spent the better part of over a year with no upheavals, with no turnover within the cabinet, and that was intentional, something that President Trump, Susie Wiles, did not want in his second term to look like a revolving door, the way it had looked in President Trump's first term. But obviously now we are entering a new phase of President Trump's presidency with him feeling as though the people who aren't working, and he's going to get rid of them.
And Kristen, how long was this coming? Because there was a sense, certainly when Pam Bondi appeared,
it's been coming for months,
before Congress and testified that she was really trying to appeal to President Trump and that she might have been on thin ice at that point.
So it kind of depends on what you mean in terms of how long has this been coming, because there has been frustration with Bondi off and on since almost the beginning of President Trump's tenure, specifically when it came to the handling of the Epstein files. There was a big swath of people, and obviously we saw the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, had said that in the interview with Vanity Fair when she said the Department of Justice whiffed on the Epstein files. There was a general feeling that that was the case, and they placed a lot of that blame on Pam Bondi, not on Kash Patel or on Dan Bongino, but on the Attorney General, because she was the one who was responsible for bringing in all of those influencers and giving them those binders, if we remember that from early in the administration. She was also the one who said on Fox News that she has the Epstein files on her desk and she'd be releasing them soon. All things that put everybody into a tight spot and then caused enormous amount of problems down the road. When it comes to actually replacing her, what we're told is that in January, this started becoming a real conversation, that the names started floating around as to who would potentially replace her. Now, that had died down a little bit, and then in the last week ramped back up. And I'll tell you, I was getting calls and text messages from people who aren't in the administration, who don't work at the White House, who were saying that they were hearing it. And they were hearing it because President Trump was making calls, really starting on Monday, asking allies what they think about the fact that he might replace her, who should replace her, what does this actually look like? And that is when we really saw, obviously, all of this kind of snowball leading to a conversation between the two of them and then her ultimate firing.
Kristen, please stand by for us. We have some extra voices to add to the conversation. Evan Perez, Jeff Zeleny, and Ellie Honig are with us. Evan, first to you. You could see this coming, but we weren't sure. Earlier, it was described as a gray area that she was in, that she might be able to salvage her job. Clearly, she couldn't.
Right. I mean, look, Kristen is what Kristen describes is what we've all been going through since January when these rumors first came up. It appeared that the president might actually do it in January, and then it died away. And we, as you know, from covering the Trump administration, you just never know whether it's real, whether there's just a faction inside the White House. They spend a lot of time.
Cool. I mean, ain't much there really, but yeah, man, that's pretty crazy. I mean, a lot of people that I listen to have been saying that it's been coming for a while, and Trump's always been weighing it for months, like if he should or not, because she's basically just not doing a good enough job, bringing enough, which that Kristen lady said that, like, she's basically just not moving fast enough and bringing good arguments and cases to Trump's enemies. So, like, if you're not really doing what your boss wants, he's gonna fire you. Like, that makes the most sense ever. So, but yeah, I'm kind of curious to know who he's gonna put in. They say Lee Zeldin. I guess he's not, or Lee Zeldin. I heard Lee's Eldon. Like, I was like, what? Who's Lee's Eldon? But my hearing doesn't work sometimes. But yeah, it'll be pretty interesting. Maybe he'll try to bring in Matt Gaetz. Who knows? It could be possible. Probably not likely, but who knows? But let me know what you guys think down in the comments about Pam Bondi being fired, and who do you think he's going to replace her with. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.